Welcome everybody to the Talk Bout podcast. Even though this ain't the podcast, this is Talk Bout That. You guys can follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, and subscribe here on YouTube. Today we have a great guest. He's one of the coaches at Revolution. He's a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt himself. We got Tom on the podcast. Tom, thank you so much for doing this. You know, you are one of the first guys from the gym that I thought about having on the podcast, not because of anything that has to do with jiu-jitsu, just with our conversations.
Sure.
You are one of the best people I've had conversations with. I couldn't think of somebody better to be on the podcast. And like you said, you're going away for work tonight. So thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
No problems. Thanks for having me.
How do you pronounce the last name?
It's Patti.
Patti. Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
It's Sicilian, so it's not Irish like everybody tends to seem to think, but it ends in an I.
Yes, that's why. Because of the I was like, is it Patty? I just didn't want to mess it up, so I thought I would ask after the fact. But we refer to him as Coach Tom, Professor Tom. Obviously at the gym, Revolution. Before we get to the podcast, I want to shout out Penn Del Mar Power, the official home of Talk Bout. Without them, we wouldn't be in this beautiful place, and none of this would be possible. And of course, Revolution BJJ. You guys can go to redbjj.com, start your jiu-jitsu career. And like I said, Tom is a big familiar face at the gym, and we're going to get all into that. But first, why are you going away? Where are you going? You said Virginia?
Yeah, I'm heading to Richmond straight after this. Nice 4-hour ride, so hopefully I'll be there before midnight. Yeah, I travel for work a lot. So
what do you do exactly for work?
So I sell coatings to large vehicle manufacturers.
Okay.
Mainly in the emergency vehicle space, construction space, things like that. So I get out there, I show guys how to use the material and how to spray it. So, yeah, that's my day job.
Yes, sir. So that's what you're going to be doing. How long are you going to be there? Because the 4th of July is also coming up as well. Are you through that?
Yeah, I kind of planned a little bit too much for myself this week because I'm actually driving to Richmond tonight.
Right.
The job's in Greenville, North Carolina. So I'm going there, and Friday I'm going to head back, pack for the beach, and then I'm heading to LBI for a week. So, yeah, so there's no jiu-jitsu for me for the next week and a half.
Right.
And there may not be any jiu-jitsu for me in the next few weeks because I have an injury that I'm kind of working on. So
oh, really?
I'll be teaching Mondays, but it depends on, I go to the orthopedic when I get back. And, you know, I've got a pretty bad torn tendon on my top side, kind of like a tennis elbow thing going on. People call it tennis elbow. If you don't know, tennis elbow sounds like, oh, that's nothing.
No, it is.
It depends on what it is. I think it's torn, and we'll get confirmation on that when I get back. So it's been kind of rough trying to grapple with one hand.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. We got a fly freaking flying around in here, of course. Tom brings in all the flies. So.
Yep. Right.
No, it's all good. I do want to, like I said, was curious about where you were going. And are you a big beach guy? I mean, you're going to the beach. Are you going with your family? I'm going to imagine for 4th of July. Is that the premise of it?
We go every year. There's 13 of us. We get a house on the LBI.
Oh, wow.
And no, I am not a big beach person.
Really?
Matter of fact, I hate the beach. I don't understand the beach. My confusion with the beach is it's hot outside. We sit on this beach for 8 hours. You sweat. The sand sticks to you, and then you go in this salty water to wash it off, to walk back out to get more sand on you. Right?
Yeah.
So get a pool and give me beer and stick me in there, and you guys can go on the beach all day. That's my preferred vacation.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah,
that's good.
I don't like the beach.
I'm a beach. I'm not a type of guy who wants to be on the beach for like a week.
Sure.
But you know, first couple days on the beach is always good. For me personally, I do understand you're not a big beach guy, are you, Rod?
No.
Yeah, Rod's more of like
my parents love the beach.
You
they
like
have an RV there, and
they
go there like
they're
every
there all the
weekend.
time.
I like the beach scene. You know, I like that whole aspect to it.
Yeah.
But they spend 8 hours on the beach. They bring their lunch out to the beach. You ever try eating a sandwich on the beach? Crunch, crunch, crunch. It's like, you know what? No.
With all the birds.
You're like eating sand.
And then you got the birds freaking flying around on your head.
Yeah, and that's the last thing I need is me on YouTube beating the crap out of a seagull and that going viral.
That'll go viral.
Yeah, then people
Rev instructor beats up seagull on the beach.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Oh, man. Yeah, the beach is an interesting. I mean, I feel like most people, you're either you really like the beach or you really don't. There's not as many in betweens. Like I would say, actually, I'm kind of in between. I do really like the beach, but I'm not like as crazy about it as some people are. Some people can sit on the beach all day long.
You can't be there for a long time. Like for a week.
Except like the first day. Like I haven't gone to the beach yet this summer. So when I go down to Myrtle Beach, you can bet that the first day I'm going to be on the beach the whole day. But like I said, throughout the week,
Whole day.
Yeah. No, you're not on the beach.
Not the whole day.
Well, Tom's over here
The
saying
whole
he's
12
up and out.
hours?
He sits down, he puts the chairs down for maybe his wife and the daughter, and then he's like, I'm out of here. I'm going back to the pool. I'm
going
drinking a
back to
beer,
the
and I'm
house."
done.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
7 days.
But let's talk about some other stuff other than the beach. Obviously, jiu-jitsu is a major part of not only your life, what you do, you also teach it now. And I want to talk about different aspects of it all. When did you start jiu-jitsu yourself? Where did you start? When did the journey begin? You know, where does that start for Tom?
So, you caught me at a point in my life where I'm kind of reflecting back 12 years. You know, I was 35. I was completely out of shape. I wanted to do something that retained my interest. You know, going to a gym does not sound interesting to me. Going to lift weights sounds boring. You know, I knew ever since watching the first UFC, I don't know, I think it was 1993, 1994, pay-per-view, I said, jiu-jitsu is what I want to do. But in the 90s, you know, if you wanted to do jiu-jitsu, you had to go to New York.
Right.
You know, I mean, it just or
There's
somewhere
not
in
many
California at the time.
back
you know?
then.
Completely different
Yeah.
to what it is now,
Yeah,
especially.
the explosion
A
had
lot.
changed. So, you know, every karate studio known to man offered jiu-jitsu, right? And I'm like, all right, let's go check this out. And I think I went to, and I won't name names,
Right.
a couple local ones in Oxford, and they, oh yeah, we do jiu-jitsu. We teach a jiu-jitsu class. And it's like, you know, it's like maybe a few minutes of a floor drill or something.
Right.
And I'm looking at this. I'm like, no, this is a joke. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to a karate school. I did Tang Soo Do Muay Kwan as a teenager, and that wasn't what I was there for. I didn't want to punch. I didn't want to kick. I wanted something that was like a puzzle, and that involved some physicality to it, because that's what keeps me interested. So at 35, I realized that there was one in my backyard at Team Defiant. You know, where we used to train as a kid.
Right.
And the big warehouse is over behind the car wash. So I started going there, and let me tell you, I was completely out of shape, completely overweight. I remember we had to do a lap around the gym. And as soon as I started going for a lap around the gym, I was winded. I looked over, and I remember seeing Professor Fitchett look at me, and I knew in his eyes, this guy's not going to last very long.
Right.
Yeah.
and a lot of people, you know, thought that, you know. And immediately, it just snapped. It was like, this is what I want to do. And if you saw where I was prior to COVID, I mean, I was about 89 pounds right before COVID, when I first moved from Oxford to Kennett when we opened the other gym.
Right.
So it was life-changing for me, completely life-changing.
You got in the best
Wow.
shape. I remember you
shape
telling
I
me
was.
this in the gym. You were the
Yeah.
best shape of your life before
That's
COVID.
good.
Yep. And then COVID happened, and mind you, I didn't stop rolling through COVID, but I was drinking and eating whatever I
Right.
wanted, and I was
Yeah.
sitting at home not moving, and I'm fighting the effects of that to this day.
Right.
Right.
And you know, now that I'm going to be 47 this year, and I'm still doing jiu-jitsu,
Yes, sir.
it's not coming off as fast as it used to.
Right.
The brain doesn't think as fast as it used to. So we're dealing with a whole nother set of rules, a new game plan that happens to you when you get deep into your 40s with jiu-jitsu. But that's kind of the love and the art of it. Like, you have to learn to adapt and adjust. You know?
Right. And something that you noted earlier, which is so interesting to me, is you talked about how you entered at 35.
Correct.
And when we had Jamie on, it was a similar deal. When you talk to Eric Naples, obviously he started when he was 16 or even younger.
Yeah.
When you start at such a older age, is it, and this is why it was great, and we even made it a clip when Jamie was talking about it's either best to start at 10 years old or now.
Mm-hmm.
When you did start at 35, was that hard, like mentally? Were you like, man, you know, I'm going to go in there and there's going to be a lot of young cats in there, a lot of young cats that are also in better shape than me. Was that hard for you?
So it's funny because you're looking at it as a perspective of a young 20-year-old. I'm looking at it as a 35-year-old at the time, thinking, I'm just as young as the rest of these guys.
Right.
So at 35, I didn't think I was a 35-year-old man. I thought I was a 20-something-year-old kid.
Okay.
Now, mind you, most of the guys in the gym that were deep in their jiu-jitsu path were the same age as me. You know, I started with Professor Sean as a purple belt.
Okay. That's interesting.
I started with Nick Willie as was a blue belt when I started. So Nick's about 10 years younger than me, but a lot of those guys were we're kind of close to the same age. And that seems to be a path. A lot of guys in their 30s kind of jump into jiu-jitsu and it becomes a life-changing thing. So you see it, but I also see, younger. I mean, my daughter's 16.
Yeah.
And she started a year after me. I got both my kids involved because I thought, hey,
good thing.
If I can get my kids involved, then it's a family event, and then I can come every night.
Yeah, it's all you got to play the game.
And that's how it worked.
Tom,
and I was
over here
literally
with the detective glasses
at the gym. I was at the gym. I was at the
Using
gym
the head.
every night I could possibly be there. You can ask, anybody that's at our gym now.
Yeah.
I was a staple. I was there all the time. And sometimes in the summer, because Professor Jamie's a teacher, he would have off, and I worked from home a lot. We'd get up in the morning, we'd train. We'd meet for lunch, we'd train. We'd come to the gym an hour before class, and we'd train.
Wow.
And then we'd take class. So it was a lot of rolling.
And
so
especially
imagine,
at the age.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, it's
wow.
different for us to go in like we do and we train when it's just us or class. But for you to do that and to be disciplined enough to do that at your age is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to ask, because I felt like that's an important thing, a part of your story that people should realize a little bit. Like you did start so late. Do you regret how late you started? You feel like it's a part of your story? Like,
And if I knew that place existed 10, 15, 20 years earlier, I would have been there.
Okay.
But the crazy thing about it is nothing speaks to me like jiu-jitsu. Nothing can hold my attention. I have severe ADHD.
Okay.
So it has to be extremely interesting for me to go, I want to be here all the time.
Right.
And that's what it was. And
Wow.
That's, and that's been my path for the last 12 years.
Would you say, and we're going to get back to jiu-jitsu, don't worry, but would you say it's the same thing for music? Because I know that you're very big into music. My family has been a part of music my whole entire life. My dad, he picked up guitar when he was 10, and he flew out to California with his brother, his twin brother, and, I'm sure we'll get my dad on here someday, and that'll be a story for them. But, he really pursued it, and it all ran through the family. I play the drums, my dad plays guitar, or my brother plays guitar, my sister sings. Music's been a big part. That's another thing and another reason why I wanted to have you on. Is it the same deal with music? Do you have that same attachment like jiu-jitsu with music?
I'm a little more lazier with music.
Okay.
But I've been playing music since I was 12 years old.
So this is different.
Yeah, and my father was a musician. I would go to sleep listening to his band practices when I was a kid.
Wow.
So when he decided to move the family from North Jersey to Pennsylvania, he sold up and gave all his gear away. He was performing, live. He had a record, the whole deal. And he dedicated all his time to the family. Me and my brother and I decided we were going to pick up instruments. So we started playing around 12, 13, and it's been that way ever since. But it's been not that I'm like, I think I'm extremely gifted at playing music. It's just one of those things I think I take more for granted than I should.
Right.
And I don't spend as much time rehearsing and practicing as I probably should.
Right.
But then again, my aspirations have never been I'm going to be the next
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. But now, with that being said, I also get into playing some pretty complex stuff. So it's not like I can't do some of that stuff. I'm just not focused on it.
Right. Would you say you are more passionate, more focused on jiu-jitsu compared to music?
So since I started jiu-jitsu, my music passion has waned. And now that I'm at a certain age and I'm doing less jiu-jitsu now, the music is creeping back in and it's starting to become an anchor for me. So figuring out the balance is going to be the interesting part.
Right.
Because I'm playing a lot more than I ever have. So,
And you're playing out, right? Playing gigs too?
So prior to COVID, we were playing large festivals, up and down the East Coast, and I was doing a lot of playing. I mean, probably 100 some odd shows a year. COVID happened, wiped the whole band out, and so it's kind of like starting from scratch.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Which is fine. It's just a different world, So now I want to play more locally. I don't want to travel anymore. I just want to play and have people go, "Hey, that sounded good," and then that's it. I don't want to be out till 2 or 3 in the morning like we used to.
Right. You just want to do like a nice evening type deal at a nice place, nice venue, a good amount of people.
Something close.
Right, for sure. To get back to jiu-jitsu, I wanted to ask you an interesting question before we really dig deep into it all and your journey and then transferring to a coach. What would be your advice for somebody who's starting new, completely fresh, has no experience? For example, Riley, obviously, just started jiu-jitsu not too long ago, and he's coming in with nothing.
Yep.
And we've been training, obviously, all the time together. And I tell Riley to come in with nothing. He's doing extremely well. And I'm not just saying this. He's my best friend. I'll tell him to his face if he sucks. Like, the truth is, he's doing extremely well. I came in with a wrestling background for somebody who doesn't have any experience and is coming in from a young age.
Yep.
What would be your advice for something like that?
A lot of when you come in, you should be a blank slate or a blank palette, because that's what's going to, allow you to absorb everything that you can when you walk in the door. You're going to get a ton of information. There's going to be information overload from the moment you walk in. And all this stuff is foreign. The movements we do in jiu-jitsu are not common, and that's what makes it so special. So when you get on those mats, you're doing things that that you wouldn't do in your normal day life. You're not going to go and start shrimping through your day at work, right? It doesn't make any sense.
No.
But a lot of those things, they repeat themselves through jiu-jitsu. So keeping yourself open and understanding that you're going to be doing movement that's quite foreign. One, don't ever underestimate the fat, overweight dad. Don't ever do it, because you're going to get something handed to you pretty quick, and it happens a lot. It's funny. These young guys come in who are fit, and trust me, young guys give you a hard time. They give you a hard time, but don't underestimate the overweight dad who's been in there, for the past couple of years, because jiu-jitsu is the great equalizer in that whole equation there. Ego, you have to check it. We all have an ego. We all carry it. Egos exist. You can't get away from it, but you have to check it. Your ego has to be checked. And when you're rolling and somebody flat out taps you or beats you, you have to appreciate it for what it was.
Yeah.
Maybe you are a better athlete than that person. Maybe you're a better jiu-jitsu practitioner than that person. But every once in a while, someone's going to catch you on something, and they're going to find a weak spot, and they're going to get you. Even as a black belt, happens to me now. You have to be willing to go, okay, he got me. Recognize that person. Good job. That was awesome. And then learn from it. Because my thing is, when you walk around with this ego and be like, that guy got a cheap shot, you're going to carry around this air to you, and guess what's going to keep happening?
Right.
And you know what?
Right.
Jiu-jitsu is a roller coaster. You feel good, you feel bad, you feel good, you feel, I'm doing good, I'm doing great. You're going to be up and down, up and down, up and down. And if you base yourself on that ego, those downs are going to suck. You're just going to be like, I'm terrible, I'm not good. And it's all up in here, man. It's all up in here. The best thing that jiu-jitsu prepares you for is keep giving you a strong head, because you're going to be going through an emotional roller coaster
The whole time.
Yeah. So
You feel like that happens?
Yeah.
Like it's like a mental...
humbling.
Yeah, like the first week or the first month, all the stuff is getting in my head and everything. And then after a couple more months, it starts to okay, I get this. Okay, I get this. I don't know. I start to get things now.
So the funny thing is, and I used to say this all the time about new guys coming in, right? So you experience all these things that happen to you, and you're trying to figure it out, right?
You're like, oh, whoa. Oh.
Yeah, it's like, what the heck just happened to me? I have no idea what happened to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Take your beatings. Take your beatings. Why? Because the new guy is going to come in. And when the new guy comes in, you get to practice all the stuff that everybody's been practicing on you, on them, and you get to start dishing out beatings. And then guess what? You guys get deeper into your jiu-jitsu path, and it becomes a give and take, right? But like I've said before, we eat our young in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You get beat up by the guys who are experienced, and then the new guys that come in, we sharpen our skills on them. It's just the way it is. Right. And then you get to a certain point where you're equal to some of the other belts, and it becomes this learning circle. I mean, you see it with the Friday night classes.
Yeah.
Beautiful learning circle. Those guys are going to, there's no reason why I should go to that class, because they're learning off each other in this little spinning circle that they're just going to get better and better and better by doing what they do. And I think that's fantastic. So that would be my advice. Take your beatings, because it's going to come around. You're going to give your beatings out to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally like that. And I was just curious because, and this is even just, I mean, eventually you're not going to be the new guy. You've been doing this for a couple months now, especially. But I just like to, for him, because he's on here, for me even, and for, everybody watching, because we all know that the people watching this podcast, are probably in some sort of sense within jiu-jitsu. So it's just good for anybody that's new to the sport. Like we've talked about multiple times already, you are a black belt in this sport.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to ask, I'm not going to break it down as, deeply as we've done with some other people because you're a coach, and I want to ask you some other questions about that. But when you did become blue belt, purple belt, brown belt to black belt, do you mind giving us a little bit of like a rundown on how you felt and the work that it took for each belt? I know that we've talked about this a little bit in the gym, especially the purple belt run.
Sure.
But if you want to talk about that, I would love to hear about every belt.
Yeah, so I come from an old school lineage where we inserted the green belt on adults. And I have no opinion about that one way or another. To me, throwing an extra belt in there in between white and blue kind of gives the person who's just starting jiu-jitsu a little bit of confidence that they're progressing. Because in other schools, you can spend a long time at white belt, depending on the school, and you're going to be judged based upon your circle of people in your school. I mean, I'd like to say it's all equal everywhere you go. It's not. No. You're being judged based upon your peers within your gym and in your circle. If you go to compete, that might be a little bit better of a look for your professor to kind of see where you're at. But in the same aspects, we're judging you against the pool of people. And so, I went from white to green in a year. And I think it was give this guy a green belt because he shows up every night and he's in his 30s and he takes his beatings and he's here.
Right. That's how you felt?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I was there a year, so it was like, I got my stripes. It was like, now it's like the green belt is to keep me interested, right?
Right.
So I get the green belt. By the time I got the green belt, I was actually assisting the professor with coaching kids because my kids were involved in jiu-jitsu at this point in time. So I started teaching my second year of jiu-jitsu, co-teaching with Professor Mike Fitchett with the kids.
And you were a green belt?
I was a green belt.
Holy smokes. So you got into teaching right off the bat. You didn't even get a chance to breathe.
And there is no better arc outside of actually physically rolling and doing your actual grappling time of a jiu-jitsu arc than actually showing people why it works for you, right? That's how it starts the process. When you have to self-analyze what makes something good or work, it becomes a better tool for you, right? So I did green belt for a year. I got promoted to blue belt. And I think by the time I got promoted to blue belt, I'm trying to think back, most of the time I always felt like I wasn't worthy for the belt, right? So when I got blue belt, it was, now
really?
now I was like, oh, God, I'm a blue belt now. Now I got to be held up to blue belt standards. Now I got to make sure I tap some of the other blue belts that come in. Or
wow,
so
this is really what you're thinking when you got it.
Yeah.
So you didn't think you were a blue belt when you got it?
No.
No?
Nope. I didn't go, I deserve this blue belt.
How long was it from green to blue?
A year. So
okay, so you went 2 years from white to blue.
So, and in the grand scheme of things, at another school, it's like 2 years at white belt.
Right.
And
but the green, and I know, and it's different at all gyms. Mm-hmm. At Rev, we do now, at least, it's green belts for only the kids.
Correct.
But like you said, it has been like that. And there's a lot of guys who came up through our gym that did get their green belt and stuff like that. So, I just was curious. So 2 years from that. Okay.
I put 2.5 years in at blue belt, and I have all my belts stacked. You can see. And you can see the amount of training I did in every belt level, right? The white belt's real skinny and crushed, and the blue belts had some worn. The stripes are kind of starting to fade. Then I got my purple belt. When I got my purple belt, I think I felt I was ready for purple belt. And there's a lot of times, when people go in the belts, they never feel they're ready for a belt. They're always like, whoa, I don't deserve this responsibility.
Right, like you just said.
By the time I got the purple belt, I had piss and vinegar in my veins. I was ready to go. I was ready for purple belt.
Right.
And I put the work in it. Purple belt was my favorite belt of all times.
Wow.
Because everybody wants to murder the purple belt. They always are in fear of the purple belt. The purple belt has the ability to tap the brown belt, smashes all the blue belts. Every blue belt wants to tap a purple belt because, hey, it's tapping a purple belt, right? The purple belt goes into a neighboring gym, and I did a lot of gym traveling and hitting other gyms, and you go out against other purple belts, and you become, it's like shark-infested waters.
Wow, that is so interesting. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just have to say, when we talk to Dave and when we talk to Chris and we talk to Eric, not Dave, I apologize. both Eric Naples and Chris said that they hated purple belt. And they hated it for different reasons. Chris hates purple belt for a different reason than Eric hates purple belt. But it's been so interesting that we've talked to everyone and everybody's like, purple belt sucks. And here you are. And I don't know if it has something to do with the way you trained, with your age maybe, with the knowledge that you were getting, with the gym. Like, there's obviously a lot of things that go into your feelings towards each belt, but you really did like purple belt.
Purple belt is where it all starts to come together. Purple belt is where your game plan is formed. By the time you're a brown belt, you already have a game.
It's just about...
You're doing the same stuff.
Yeah, it's just time and sharpening the skills.
Brown belt's just a waiting period for a black belt.
Right.
So I put a good 3.5, 4 years in plus at purple belt.
Okay, so you went 2 years from white to blue with the green belt in between, 2.5 years, so you're at 4.5 years with the purple, and then how many years until brown?
So about another 4, so almost
8
4
years.
8
at
years,
brown.
8 years to brown.
To brown.
Right.
Okay. And how was that moment? And actually, don't even, if you still got stuff to say about the purple, I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
No, purple belt was great. So, I mean, at that point in time, and it had a lot of it had to do with where I was, personally in my life and how younger I was. And so I was still eager, to chase those things. So by the time I got my brown belt, I didn't feel like I deserved my brown belt. I was like, I could stay here at purple for a while.
Right.
Why? Because I could tap some brown belts. I could, and I think a lot of it had to do with, I was just turning 40 or just after 40. So like everything hasn't started to slow down at that point in time.
Right.
So I still felt young, So by the time I got my brown belt, I was like, I don't deserve this. And matter of fact, I didn't necessarily want it. I know that's like blasphemous to say, but
no, people are like that.
It was like, I don't know if I want my brown belt because there's a different responsibility with brown. Now, what I know about brown belts and what I see in brown belts are, they are the most laziest jiu-jitsu practitioners out there.
Because at that point, you're just really waiting for your black belt. Right?
Yeah, well, it depends. It depends on the school. But, the brown belts that I've come across in my path and journey is most of those guys are just like, yeah, it's brown belt, man. I'm just squatting,
Yeah.
So
and then when you get the black belt, it changes everything. But in a sense, that's what they're probably thinking, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, You think about it. By the time you get to brown belt, you've put almost 9 some years into jiu-jitsu. So at some point in time, it's like, depending on the person, the luster that it was in the lower belts is not like it was anymore.
Yeah.
And probably a lot of times is when you get in the brown, you're still fearing that crazy piss and vinegar purple belt's going to annihilate you and embarrass you in front of a group of people. You know what I mean? Because that's possible. It's possible, right? You got a younger kid, all things being equal, you can check the age box, you can check the physicality, the athletic box, and the belt, and if those things don't add up, someone's going to get you. They're going to get you, and it's just the nature of the game, so you have to understand and be okay with it. So brown belt to me was a waiting period for black, and now that I'm in black belt, it was kind of like the pressure's off for me.
Because, and that's why I'm saying, I keep bringing up the age thing.
Yeah.
Is because it really, I feel like the age plays a big difference in what you think about things. Because when you think about it, some people, if you're 20 years old competing at blue belt, some people just want to stay at blue belt because you're so young, you got so much time, there's no need. You weren't necessarily competing. You were almost already in the coaching role because you got the coaching role at green belt, which is why it's crazy to me. Yep. But when you did get your black belt,
yeah, so I got my black belt and it was like pressure's off.
Hobson is the one who gave it to you, right?
I got my black belt from Hobson Mora, which is in and of itself is a really, really awesome thing.
Oh yeah,
cool. I mean, you guys know a little bit about Hobson Mora, and you're gonna know more. He is one of the original guys to really blaze a path for jiu-jitsu in the United States.
And look at it now. Like you were saying, like we were talking about in the beginning.
And he's younger than me.
And he's already got how many stripes on his 8 stripes on his black belt. Yeah. He's an 8-time Hall of Famer or 8-time world champion in the IBJJF Hall of Fame. The man is absolutely obviously a legend.
Travel, like I did. I traveled for work. I traveled, a lot. I used to travel pretty much the entire country. And when I would go, I would take a gi, throw a gi in my bag. I'm not a big gi guy, but at the time at purple belt, I liked gi. So that's the big difference too. I would go to other gyms And a lot of those guys I'd run into are seasoned jiu-jitsu guys. And, hey, who do you train with? Well, I'm Hobson Moore School. They'd be like, you're at Hobson Moore School? I was like, yeah. And they're like, that's awesome. One guy like points to a picture, and there's a picture of him like shaking hands with Hobson Moore. Like he was so proud of it. And this was a Gracie school, you know? So
right.
he's like, that's me with Hobson Moore. I'm like, that's funny because he was at my school like a week ago. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
yeah.
cool.
I mean, that he really is. He's really trail, and that's why it's like we talked about earlier. Like you used to go around, and jiu-jitsu class was nothing.
Yeah.
But look at it now. You can't go anywhere
It grows.
without seeing the sport. The sport is not stopping, is continuing to grow. More eyes are getting put on the sport. It's an amazing sport. Obviously, mixed martial arts, UFC, stuff of that nature helps, bring that light to it because jiu-jitsu is obviously a big part in this all. But it's really interesting. And then when you did get your black belt, that took a lot of the pressure off you.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this question, and this is where it's interesting because you already started coaching. But would you say that when did you really get into coaching? You know what I mean? Like, because now you teach every Monday at Rev. You are a professor there, and and I asked Jamie the same question: the transition between being a student, and having your own journey, your own path with getting all these belts. When you transition to being a coach, what was the transition like?
So a little history lesson on that. By the time I got my purple belt, I was co-teaching kids class, and Professor Fitchett had stepped away.
I'm going to put in the charger real quick. I was just looking at that. Continue. You're good. I can hear.
Professor Fitchett stepped away from teaching, and so I was co-teaching the kids class with a buddy of ours who runs a gym very close to here, Huey Meehan. Him and I were the kids coach, and we primarily were teaching kids, every class. And then when we opened Rev Kennett, Jamie had asked me to come to Kennett, and ironically, a lot of things in my life were changing. Took on a new job, bought a new house in Kennett, so it put me right in Kennett, and I started co-teaching kids class with another gym owner, Anthony Passanelli, who was with us before he had eventually opened up his own gym as well. So I would say by the time I was in purple belt, I was in full-fledged coaching mode, and there's a different... you start to learn there's an art to coaching. And if you half-ass it, and sometimes that happens, depending on what your work day looks like, because, hey, this is not a primary job for me. But I try to put a lot of effort into my lessons. I try to research, things. I'll even go on like, hey, I know I'm going to teach my favorite side control stuff today. I'll go online and look at other stuff to see if I can pick up an extra detail that might be helpful to somebody. Or if I'm seeing someone else do it, I go, oh, yeah, I do that too. That works for me. I'm going to introduce that into my lesson. If we're not constantly being researchers of the art, we're not going to be able to give back. So, yeah, I'm a YouTube watcher like crazy. But a lot of what I do spawns from what makes me successful on the mat. So I bring to you stuff that I know, that I do well. You're not going to see me do any berimbolo. Why? Because I don't berimbolo. Look at me. I'm not a berimbolo type of guy. It's not going to work in my game.
Right.
I'm not going to teach you stuff that doesn't work in my game. And some people will have conflicting conversations. There are other coaches out there who will tell you, you need to know everything about it as a black belt so you can give every bit of knowledge to that one person. You know what? There's no rules to this. Listen, I'm going to be a better teacher to you if I use it. If I use it every day, I'm going to be able to explain to you that move and show you inside and out and how to use it. If it's something I don't use, it doesn't fit in my game.
Well, that also just comes with styles. You're going to get different tools from different practitioners depending on what they do.
Always good to get different lessons from different people.
So, like, for example, when you go to Tom's class on Monday, expect possible side control, butterfly guard, things from that nature. That's a lot. I mean, I'm just, going through some of the stuff that you've done. Don't expect some other things, but you can expect that from some other coaches that other people, other gyms obviously provide other coaches.
And if we all taught the same stuff, what's the point of having different classes,
Right.
I mean, ironically... I trained with Jamie a lot, so I share a lot of similar things with Jamie. Now, I don't teach gi. If I taught gi, you'd probably see a lot of the same stuff you see in Jamie's class and then you see in Sean's class.
Right.
Although I have some other things that I utilize. I have a whole other bank of tools for gi. I just don't teach gi.
Right, and I asked this question to everyone who is a jiu-jitsu grappler on this podcast: gi or no gi? I already know the answer because we've talked about this before, and it is no gi.
100% no gi.
Why would you say no gi again?
As I got older, gi has just become a nuisance for me. I don't like wearing a gi. To me, I don't feel like, for the art of the sport, and I respect it for the art of the sport. And listen, it doesn't mean I'm not going to train gi. There'll be a moment in time where I'll flip back to gi and be like, yeah, I love doing this again. But right now, where I'm at, no gi. I like to move quick. I like to be able to get in and out. The gi slows the game down, right? It does.
Yeah, 100%.
For better or for worse. You ask a guy why they like gi, and what do they tell you? Why do they like gi?
Slows everything down so they can slow down the guys who
what's the
are...
main reason? The main reason why I like the gi is for the grips.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Of course.
Ask a guy why he doesn't like the gi. What's he going to tell you?
The grips.
The grips.
It's a love-hate. Yeah. And I've said this to Riley, when I first got into jiu-jitsu, I didn't know even what a gi was. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get into, like, I've been doing jiu-jitsu now, I think in August, it will be 9 months. Mm-hmm. In August, it would be closer to a year. But the thing is, with gi, I've only been doing it in August by nine months. Right. So I've been doing jiu-jitsu in August for a year, but I didn't get into gi until a couple months after I started doing, going to Rev, signed up, and did the whole thing. But it's really interesting because people really do have mixed, what do you think about it now? Because I know you keep saying, like, maybe as you get into it more, you'll like it more. Are you still at the same spot with gi?
Right now, I like no gi, but I don't know. I feel like I would grow on gi more. I don't know.
I personally, this is my opinion, like, if I'm going to compete, if I'm going to roll with a bunch of people, I'm picking no gi. But I do feel like practicing in the gi helps me learn the moves better because it's so much slower. And I don't have to waste any energy in the gi.
I think more of the experienced people at gi it's gonna be harder to.
Oh my gosh! You gotta know the grips.
Try to do something than no gi.
What about on the street though? Because people argue this all the time. I don't even think this is even a question. They're both fine on the street, but what would you say is more effective on the street?
There you go.
No, seriously, I mean, as it pertains on the street as it pertains to jiu-jitsu, I mean,
because I think if somebody's wearing jeans, if this guy is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a brown belt, purple belt, blue, it doesn't matter.
But who's wearing jeans on a street fight?
What are you talking about? You're just saying because you're in the street you don't wear jeans? That doesn't even make any sense. People wear jeans all the time. Even those those pants. If you grab that, it's just like a gi, right?
Sure. I think it's kind of a difficult thing to decipher one way or another.
I mean, it's all
one thing I'm not.
I mean,
the one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say. I say I'm not going to do something, and then I visualize me freaking X-choking somebody in their leather jacket. You know what I mean? Like it's all possible.
Right.
It's all possible.
But I'm just saying, like, really, if somebody's wearing a hoodie, dude.
Sure.
You ended with that baseball bat choke. That Tom freaking taught. Oh, no, you didn't teach it. Jamie taught it, but Tom was the guy.
Was the Uki.
Remember that? Tom was we're doing the baseball. Tom's freaking head was about to fall off.
Yeah.
And then he comes over.
I turned purple.
Oh,
Jamie doesn't
Yeah, well, so Jamie's probably the big reason that kind of destroyed my thoughts about gi jiu-jitsu with the grips, because once he gets a hold of you, there's no you must succumb, you have to learn to work around somebody's grips. And everybody talks about he who wins the grip battle wins the game, right? And Jamie will say that all the time. When Jamie grips you up, you are not winning that grip battle.
Crazy.
You need to think of another game plan.
I'm not even just saying that. Like, I've rolled with everyone at the gym. I have yet to roll with Jamie no-gi because I
prefer to roll with him no-gi, be honest.
Yeah, because I've never rolled with him no-gi, but I do know him in the gi. I will never forget the one move that he did where I was in his guard and you lock your legs in the guard, but then you put your arm. Yeah, you put your arms around, grab
ribs. Yep.
Dude. I literally felt like I got shot in the ribs. It was the worst pain, and for 3 days after, it was horrible. Yeah, I don't recommend rolls with Jamie in the gi.
No, and Jamie doesn't care whether you're a white belt or a black belt, you're going to get the same intensity out of him.
Get it.
And in a way, I really do appreciate that. There were times where I would roll with Jamie and I would go train with him during the day, and I'd turn to my wife and I'd go, well, hope I don't break something today.
Yeah, I know.
And she'd be like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm rolling with Jamie. But it was invaluable, the lessons I learned grappling with him because of that strength, because of how dominating of a grappler he is. I was able to turn that around and spin that against other people when, and it made me a little more, I guess, sharper and a little more rough in a lot of ways.
Right.
And I've always said, when I was a kid, I played football. During football season, don't mess with me. I'm aggressive. Off football season, I'm the nicest guy in the world. It's that way when you get into, when you're doing a lot of rough rolls on a frequency that I was doing, you just become a very gruff person.
Mm-hmm.
And then
it's just so different compared. Like we've talked, and we've had people on here, and we've talked about the difference between wrestling and jiu-jitsu and all the jiu-jitsu is just it's just different. It's just a very different thing. Like you said, when we were going over single leg X the other day, like I told you, this is going to feel very weird. It makes no sense. When Chris taught me it for the first time, and he was explaining, he goes, look, this knee is going to drive down. You're going to have your leg here, and you're going to be doing this push and pull. I'm like, dude, I can get out of this.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Some grip going like pushing your knee.
But you ain't going nowhere.
You ain't going nowhere. My leg's literally stuck. And you really learn that, like, even this position up on the hip when you're on single leg X, it's a weird position, but you get used to it, you learn it, and then when you figure it out, I mean, and the legs in jiu-jitsu is becoming obviously even more and more and more, but it's a whole world. I mean, it is like crazy the amount of things that you can do, and you're never going to know everything. And it's just like everything. Anything you do, playing the guitar, doing jiu-jitsu, you're never going to know everything. Even with doing a podcast or whatever you do, you're always constantly learning. And I think something, and just to, say this, that I've always noticed about you is you always are trying to learn. You talk to other people, younger or older, about moves and practice things, and you're always constantly trying to learn. And that I really appreciate, not just as a grappler, but also as a coach, to see other people, asking questions. It's something that you do all the time. So, is that something also that's important to implement, not only in your game, but as a coach, is asking other people for advice or different details on specific moves?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many factors in everybody's jiu-jitsu arc. I mentioned age, athleticism, intelligence. There's an aspect of intelligence involved in this game. So everybody's going to have a different approach to things, and somebody's going to pick something up that's different. So when I turn around and I see, one of our guys, and I'll pick one out, Jake, taking notes, to see him do that, and then to see him start drilling those things with some of the other guys in the gym, and it's like, I'll walk up, I'll just sit there and stare. I'm like, hey, how do you learn that? Oh, yeah, so that's there. And then every once in a while, I'll be like, hey, you got a new plata in that too. Oh, yeah. But like, to me, I'm fascinated by it because there's a whole new wave of jiu-jitsu that wasn't there before. A lot of it is dealing with the bottom half of the legs. I didn't grow up with jiu-jitsu like that. By the time I was in my brown belt, that game was starting to peak on the pro side.
Oh, yeah.
So,
it's amazing.
Our
and
gym
honestly,
never trained it.
Yeah, it's crazy, and that's the thing. It's amazing how much it's really starting to grow because
it's changed the game 100%. Like Eric Naples.
Oh my gosh.
And he who has totally embraced the leg game. And you look how successful he has been because of that.
Yeah.
He picked up on it quick and he started running with it. And so anytime you can take his class, I always.
Oh, yeah.
I know he's there tonight. I'm heading down south, but.
I know.
And listen, if I'm not there, it is no disrespect on any other. I love everyone who teaches at our school. If I could be there more, I would. I made a conscious decision coming out of COVID. I was just going to step back a hair from the gym a little bit. I was spending a lot of time in the gym. So it's going to come back around. It's cyclical for me. After this summer, if I get this thing healed up and whatever it is, I'll be back on the mats as much as I possibly can. But work kind of kept me away too.
Right. And plus, you got to make sure the injury is good too,
Yeah,
especially at the age. Like that's again back to the age thing. It doesn't really matter. You need to keep up with your injuries. I mean, when I hurt my knee, it's hard sitting out for 2 weeks, and I almost like mentally challenge myself. Like I'll come to the gym and I'll watch, and it sucks because I just sit there and watch. But I feel like it's good for me to be able to just continue to watch and just stay in it, and I can, just to why
At
not
least be there.
Yeah,
I think
but
that's a great idea.
Yeah, it just
keep
sucks
going.
sometimes when you're sitting there and you can't do anything. But I'm sure it's hard with your wrists and everything. Or your where is it? You said it's a forearm.
It's right where the elbow meets the forearm.
I know.
It's pretty. I'm pretty sure I have some sort
I
of
see
small
it.
tear. Yeah, it's not like I can't. I have no strength
From
on it.
Jiu Jitsu? Is that where it came from?
Actually, no. I did it.
Sorry about that.
I did it bench pressing at the gym.
I haven't
Oh,
been-
really?
Jeez,
Like a
at the
knucklehead.
gym.
Oh.
Should have never went to the gym. Tom
Exactly.
just stated the morals.
Exactly.
man.
So yeah.
Yep, you
did that.
go and do the boring stuff, and then you end up tearing every limb in your body.
But back to the teaching real quick. There's
Of course.
one thing that I do, and I have every lesson I've ever taught for the last 5 years on my phone.
Mm.
So I take extensive notes. You probably wouldn't be able to read them because it's in
you're just-
abbreviations.
Right.
But all my lessons, if you see me grab for my phone during the lesson, it's because I took a note and because it's planned out. So I have all of my lessons on my phone
Wow.
at any given time and the date that I taught it.
Wow.
So I can go back and go, yeah, I taught that
Oh, you have them all just
in my
in
notes on my phone.
That's awesome.
You didn't delete a single one?
I don't
Wow.
delete them.
5 years.
Jeez.
Well, that's great because that's good to have.
Yep.
to go
You can
back
always
to.
refer back, and if somebody asks, you can be like, you know what? Got the question. Let me go
There you
into
go.
my dictionary. Yeah, swipity swipe, swipe, swipe. You probably got a lot of.
And if I
lot of
and
swipes.
if I use a video as a reference, I save that link.
Before we let you go, I know you got a big drive, and I don't want to keep you here too long. I do have one final question for you. Obviously, Rev is a sponsor of this gym. I wanted to talk about more of the coaching, your journey, but I do want to just give one light to it. What would you say for you personally is one of the best parts of not only coaching but coming up through and being a part of the gym revolution?
Well, I think in jiu-jitsu, it's a very intimate thing, right? We meet all these different people. You're not going to walk up to some random stranger and hug them. Maybe you will. I don't know what type of person
Right.
you are, but you're getting into close quarters with complete strangers, right? And it's so, like I said, it's a very intimate thing. It takes a very special brain to be able to embrace that. We're simulating murder and death by holding somebody close to us, right? So the friendships you develop in jiu-jitsu, regardless of age, gender, political backgrounds, are priceless. So the best thing that you get out of jiu-jitsu is almost like a family, right? We all have family who we can't stand their political view, or we can't stand something about them, but they're family and they're always there, right?
Right.
That's the good part about jiu-jitsu, right? You have a crappy day, your day is terrible, and then you go hang out with your friends and simulate murdering them.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's like.
I mean,
in reality, once you smack hands, you're looking to submit.
Yeah, you're simulating a murder scene, right?
Yeah.
But we're all doing it in a playful manner. We're doing it so we all get better and get good at this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you ask me what I want out of jiu-jitsu, it's to keep moving so I don't slow down and die. But in the benefit of this, you're getting a self-defense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting a tool. My kids have tools that when they go off to college, that'll never leave them. I just love that discussion where everybody has meeting out into the street, right? If you get out in the street and somebody attacks you, you've got all these jiu-jitsu skills, right? And then there's so many variables that are in place.
Of course.
Mike Tyson says everybody has a game plan to get punched in the face, right? Very
Right.
true fact.
Yep.
Now, again, age, athleticism, lucky shot.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody smacks you, cold cocks you in your periphery. You can't see that.
You're
I
done.
don't care how
No.
much jiu-jitsu you know. You're dropping. So there's so many variables involved in all this thing. Just always being aware. When I go to a bar and I feel like it's a contentious situation, I always look for the guy with the messed up ears.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because that's a start, right?
I thought you were saying I always look for the exit.
No. Well, that too. But you look around, I go, all right, don't mess with that dude. That dude's got some roll time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I always look, the guy with the most mangled ears is not necessarily says how good his jiu-jitsu is, but he's got some training.
He's done
in.
something.
He's got something.
Yes. Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, look, if you get a hold of him, you're in you're in bad waters.
Listen,
I mean, let's be honest here, Tom. Like, if you get a hold of another 50-year-old guy, you get a hold of him. He's your size, even if he's a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller.
One thing jiu-jitsu has done is it has definitely improved my confidence. It made
Oh,
me go,
of course.
It made me go, yeah, I'm going to destroy that 50-year-old guy. But you don't know what that 50-year-old
Of course,
guy knows.
of course.
You have to use conventional wisdom and go, what is the safest, best way to get out of this scenario?
Right, and
that's going to allow me to be able to walk in here tomorrow.
Yeah.
Always in my head. Trust me, when you get to a certain level of your jiu-jitsu, you start going through those things like, wow, like this is all good and fine, but I really hope I never have to use this.
Oh, yeah.
Although I do fantasize that there's that moment on a plane
where you're able.
where that person goes off and you're like, you're the guy that goes, I got this.
Yeah.
There you go.
And you save the day.
Or on a train, you know?
Jeez.
Of course,
man.
that fantasy plays to your head. You know?
Tom's sitting on the plane. He's like, please, somebody.
Yeah. Come on.
Please. It was almost like that one time. We went on a plane.
Oh,
to,
my.
We went to the first time I was ever on a plane, UFC 280 or 290 or 279, whatever it was.
Of course.
And what was it? The guy brought drinks on the plane. What, you're not allowed to have drinks on the plane? Something
You're
like
not
that.
supposed to have something on the plane, and then
He had alcohol, I think, on the plane.
He refused to get off of the plane.
They had to kick him out.
Here we go.
And I told Ryan, get up. Come on, be the guy who saves the day. Remember, I was like, Ryan,
Well, let me
why
get
aren't you
this
getting
straight,
up
though.
Yeah.
You guys are flying to Vegas to see a UFC event, right?
Yeah.
So this guy on the plane was probably going to the same event.
Probably.
Right?
Maybe.
So here's my rule of thumb. You don't start a fight at a jiu-jitsu tournament.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
I went to
true.
a kickboxing match and people started fighting, throwing fists everywhere. And I'm like, oh, these guys are trained.
I know.
Like, I'm looking for the exit. I'm looking for the exit going, I'm not fighting that dude.
Oh, no.
I'm out.
No,
You know?
you're looking at the wrangling ears. Every ear you look at is wrangled.
Right, so
Every year.
the next time you're at an IBJJF event and a fight breaks out, just get out of there. Just
Yeah,
get
that's true.
You're running out. I'm jumping on Tom's back. I'm out.
I'm getting out.
In with the backpack and we out.
That's right.
Up and all.
No, I don't want to keep. we could talk here all day, Tom,
I could
and I would
talk
love
for
to
hours.
get you back on in the future, of course, because
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have more. Like I said, you're the one guy that I could talk to.
Sure.
No problem.
Hours.
But I want to make sure you get. And you got a long trip. I appreciate you doing this so much, especially on the
problem.
time. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
And you guys know what to do. You guys can follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, and subscribe here on YouTube. You guys can listen to this on all audio platforms. And we'll have a new Talk About That in the next 2 weeks. Thank you again, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I hope you guys have a good day. Right? Got anything else you want to say?
Nope.
Sweet. Thank you guys.
Very
Have a good rest of your day and peace.
Peace.